Discover the incredible twist. Ex-wife arrives in limo with Triplet, shocking everyone at wedding. The church was alive with love and laughter as Jake stood at the altar, his heart racing. The scent of wildflowers danced in the air, filling the room with a vibrant energy that made everything feel like magic. Family and friends surrounded him, their smiles glowing like the summer sun. His soon-to-be bride, Emily, looked radiant in her flowy white dress, hair adorned with delicate blooms. Yet, within the joyous chaos, a specter hovered over Jake. Just days earlier, he had brushed off the ghosts of his past, his nerve-wracking divorce from Sarah, the high school sweetheart who had chosen wealth over love. Memories of shared dreams and painful endings lingered beneath the surface like a shadow. Still, he pushed those thoughts aside. Today, he was marrying Emily, the woman who made him believe in love again. As they exchanged vows, a hush fell over the crowd, the weight of the moment filling the air. Jake glanced at Emily, and their eyes locked, an unspoken promise shared between them. Then everything shattered. A piercing growl of an engine cut through the sacred silence. The crowd turned as a stretch limousine rolled up to the curb, eerily out of place in their small-town setting. Confused murmurs filled the air. Jake's heart raced, adrenaline coursing through his veins. The doors swung open, and there she was, Sarah. She stepped out looking as stunning as ever, her designer dress clinging to her tall figure. But what cracked Jake's heart wide open was the sight that followed her three small figures, his triplet children, waddling behind her like lost ducklings. Time froze. The church gasped in disbelief. What a disgrace, someone whispered, while an older couple clutched each other in shock. Jake couldn't breathe. It was an unwelcome reminder of a life he thought he had left behind. Yet here they stood, perfectly innocent and beautiful. Jake, Sarah called, her voice tremulous as she approached, cradling the children in her arms. The years of tension, anger, and heartache surged back, clawing at him. Emily's expression shifted from radiant excitement to confusion and hurt. I needed to talk to you. Beneath the backdrop of chairs and floral arrangements, the scene unraveled at a dizzying pace. Guests stood frozen, some rushing to Jake, others whispering harsh judgments as if they were the jury passing a sentence. Jake felt their eyes. His fingers twitched around the ring he had meant to slip onto Emily's hand. Jake! Emily's father barked, his face flushed with frustration. But Jake's attention was caught by the gleam of his children's eyes, filled with curiosity and love. Jake's heart tugged in all directions. The weight of old memories pulled him in one way while the bright future with Emily beckoned him in another. He felt a surge of loyalty towards his kids, an instinct he couldn't ignore. In this chaotic moment, as if the world spun faster, he realized that the definition of family was no longer confined to past decisions. Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Jake stood at a crossroads. His heart swelled with the possibility of love, yet trembled under the burden of past choices. Would he fight for this life he'd built with Emily, or embrace the unexpected return of Sarah and the children who made him a father? As the ceremony hung in the balance, every breath felt like a decision that could rewrite the narrative of his life. Would he choose love, responsibility, or the hope of reclaiming a dream that felt long lost? The air cracked with tension. Jake stood frozen, eyes locked onto his children. They were so small, so innocent, and yet they bore the weight of a life he thought he had left behind. Emily's face shifted from joy to confusion, and anger surged within him as he heard the whispers around them. Get them out of here. Emily's father barked again, his urgency an electric jolt through Jake. Please, just let me explain. Sarah insisted, desperation cracking through her composed exterior. She glanced nervously at the three kids, who looked around in awe, oblivious to the storm brewing in the adults. Jake felt the pull of their laughter, their joy. It beckoned him like a lighthouse through a fog. Yet, Emily's heartbreak was a weight that pressed hard against his chest. He turned his head slightly, catching a glimpse of her tear-filled eyes, and his heart shattered anew. "Dad," a quiet voice broke through Jake's turmoil. It was Lily, the youngest of the triplets, her eyes wide and searching. Is that Mommy?" She pointed at Sarah, innocence radiating from her tiny frame. Jake's heart clenched. "Yes, sweetie, that's your mom." A painful silence hung in the air as he looked back and forth between the two women in his life, each clinging to their hope. Emily's anger flared, but there was something more: wounded vulnerability. He could see it in the tightening of her jaw, the way her hands trembled at her sides. "I can't do this here," Jake said finally, his voice firm yet unsteady. "Not today." But even as he uttered the words, doubt seeped through him like poison. What was this anyway? Wasn't a wedding supposed to be about love and commitment? Instead, here they were, chaos swirling around him like a storm, with love being a distant echo. "Emily, I can explain everything." He turned to her, taking a tentative step forward. "You have to understand, this might look bad, but I need to think about the kids, and it's always about them. I senti it." Emily shot back, pain sparkling in her eyes. "You think they'll understand that you left us standing here while you dug up the past?" The tension snapped. Jake felt himself sway under the weight of her accusation. Memories spilled into his mind. The laughter over dinner, the dreams they painted together, and the unforgiving ending that had made him a stranger in his own home. Was he the villain in this situation? Was this really what love looked like? The guests murmured, some casting sideways glances, their discomfort palpable. He could feel their judgment like a suffocating blanket. "Daddy?" Another one of the kids piped up, fidgeting by Sarah's side. "Can we go home?" Jake felt a jolt, a realization biting sharply at his insides. Home. Where was home for the triplets? Was it the life he was building with Emily, or was it the inconsistent love from Sarah? He was torn in half, and the line that separated right from wrong blurred deeply. "Everyone, please, can you excuse us?" Jake finally said through clenched teeth, tension radiating from every pore. "I need to talk to Sarah." Emily's eyes widened, the hurt echoing in the silence. "Jake," she whispered, one step closer yet worlds apart. But he was already lost in the moment, turning towards Sarah, their history hanging between them like a thread ready to snap. "Let us talk for them," he said, forcing his voice steady. As he stepped down from the altar, he could feel the hot eyes of the crowd burning into his back. Every footfall felt heavy with consequence. Could this choice lead to healing or just rip the wounds wider? The future now lay uncertain before him, and the echoes of past decisions loomed large. What awaited them in the shadows of this unexpected reunion? Would he finally uncover the truth that could either pull them closer together or tear them apart entirely? Jake's heart raced as he took a step away from the altar. Each movement felt like wading through mud, heavy and slow. Sarah looked at him, caught between fear and the flicker of hope that she might be able to explain everything. He glanced at Emily. Her face was a storm, hurt written all over her features. Yet there was a flicker of resolve there, too. It made his stomach churn. "Jake," Emily's voice broke through the noise of the wedding guests. "Just stop." But he couldn't stop. He had to face this. He had to figure out where he stood. With a deep breath, he turned to Sarah. "We need to talk. Now." Sarah nodded, but her gaze darted back to the kids. She knelt down, her eyes soft as she spoke to Lily, trying to comfort the little girl who looked so lost in the chaos. "Everything's going to be okay, honey," she said with a hint of tremor in her voice. She straightened, looking at Jake. "Let us go." With every step away from Emily, Jake felt a piece of himself snag on the hurt in her eyes. It was a long walk to the side of the building, far from prying eyes. The backdrop of dark clouds looming overhead reflected the turmoil in his heart. "Jake, what is going on?" Sarah's voice sliced through the silence. "I don't know," he snapped, frustration boiling over. "You just showed up at my wedding. You think this is easy for me? Sarah flinched, her own hurt evident. I didn't want to. I was trying to be there for the kids. I thought it would be a good thing. A good thing? He spat, throwing his hands up. You have no idea what this is doing to Emily, to me, to the kids. I know it's chaos. Okay? The last thing I intended was to cause more pain. Sarah's eyes filled with tears. I just wanted them to know what? That you're still here? That you're still a part of their lives even though you left? Jake took a step back, the weight of guilt settling on him like a thick blanket. How is this going to help? Jake. Please let us just sit down and talk this through, Sarah said, her desperation clear. He looked away, angry at himself for feeling torn. The kids were innocent bystanders in a war of emotions. Jake's heart sank at the thought of what they could be absorbing. Dad? Lily's tiny voice broke into his thoughts. Fear evident. She had followed them and clutched Sarah's skirt with tiny fingers. Are we going home now? He crouched down to her level, forcing a smile. Not yet, sweetheart. We just need to talk for a moment. It's important. Lily nodded, but her eyes were wide with confusion. Jake turned back to Sarah. This isn't just about us anymore. We have to think about what's best for them. Can we even do that? The reality of his words hit hard. Both women had been pivotal in shaping his life, but how could he mesh those old dreams with the life he had built since? Maybe if we just talk, Sarah began, her voice soft but charged with urgency. We can find a way to make this work for them. No more running away. Just honesty. Jake searched her eyes, looking for the sincerity he desperately needed to see. It was there, flickering like a candle in the wind. But was it enough to sway him? Was it possible to build something from the rubble of their past? Emily's voice, filled with pain, echoed in his ears. You think they'll understand that you left us standing here while you dug up the past? He clenched his fists. I don't know. The uncertainty hung heavily in the air, thick as the storm that finally broke above them. Rain beginning to fall down in soft patters. Can you accept the truth? Sarah's voice trailed off, as if she feared the answer would open a door they couldn't close again. Jake stood there, the rain starting to wash away the dust of the day. In that moment, he realized to move forward, he would need to confront the shadows, not only of their past but also of what would define their future. What did the truth look like? And could it bridge the divide between them? As the water dripped from their faces, the real storm was only beginning to gather. Jake swallowed hard, unsure of where to begin. The rain picked up, drumming on the pavement like a heart racing in time with his anxiety. What truth? He finally managed to ask. There was a heaviness in the air, every breath saturated with tension. Sarah's gaze drifted down to Lily, still standing by her side, and for a moment, it seemed as if she was weighing the consequences of every word. The truth is, I didn't leave because I wanted to. I thought it would be best for everyone. But now I see how selfish that was. Selfish? Jake scoffed, bitterness creeping into his tone. You left us without a second thought. Sarah, how can you sit there now and tell me it was for our sake? I thought it was. I thought time apart would heal things. I didn't realize how much it would hurt you and the kids. Her voice cracked. I just wanted to protect them from the mess of our lives. Lily tugged at Sarah's skirt. Mommy, are you and Daddy fighting? Jake's heart broke at the innocent question. No, Lily. We're just talking. He cast a glance at Sarah. Talking about things we should have handled a long time ago. The irony of the moment washed over Jake. Here they stood, once united in love, now caught in a storm of unresolved issues, and the fallout was crashing down around them. Just then, he noticed Emily's silhouette at the edge of the rain. She had pulled her hair back, a few strands curling against her forehead, face still painted with hurt and confusion. Despite everything, she seemed to draw strength from something deep within. Was it hope? Maybe we should talk inside, Emily suggested, her voice steady as she stepped forward, unafraid of the rain that drenched her. This can't continue like this. Jake hesitated. Part of him wanted to keep Sarah at arm's length, to shield himself from the possibility of getting hurt again. But he knew Emily was right. They needed to find a place, however painful, to finally unearth the truth. Okay, Jake agreed, looking back at Sarah. Let us go inside and be honest. No more half-truths or misunderstandings. Just the truth. As they began to walk back towards the entrance, Lily still clutching Sarah, Jake felt as if they were crossing a river with no bridge. Every step felt enormous, as if they were venturing into uncharted territory. The rain blurred the edges of the world, now layered with uncertainty. Inside, the warmth felt suffocating, the air thick with anticipation from the remaining wedding guests who had halted their chatter, all eyes on them. Jake forced himself to keep his composure, afraid of what he might see reflected in their faces. Sarah was first to speak, her voice trembling but filled with determination. I want to explain, but Emily interjected, her tone firm. Enough talking. What we need is clarity. We cannot keep jumping from one reckoning to another, hoping it resolves itself. The room felt electric, silence coiling around them like a tight embrace. Jake's breath hitched in his throat. He could feel the strain in Emily's words. They were daring to step into the depths of emotions they had ignored for too long. Ignoring the stares of the curious guests, Jake focused on Sarah's eyes, searching for the truth she promised to deliver. He was apprehensive yet drawn in, his heart holding onto a flicker of hope that this was the break they needed. Tell us everything, Jake said, his voice almost a whisper, but the weight behind it pulled them all closer. As Sarah opened her mouth to speak, the doors swung open with a loud crash, and a gust of wind swept into the room. Everyone turned in surprise to see a figure silhouetted against the dim light. The sound of laughter rippled through the crowd, but it was the sound of two small voices, identical in tone, that silenced the room. Mommy, look! Jake's heart dropped as he recognized the entrance. His world tipped and teetered, and he stared in shock at the figures emerging from the door. Two kids. His kids, bound together by the surprises life had thrown at them. Could this be the twist that would change everything? Could this revelation bring them all together, or would it tear them further apart? The room fell into a hush so thick you could cut it with a knife. Jake could hardly believe his eyes as his twins little Sam and Mia stood in the doorway, drenched but grinning from ear to ear. The laughter that had just erupted faded into confusion. Shock painted across every face except his. The moment felt like a dream and a nightmare all at once. Daddy! Sam shouted, bolting forward, pulling Mia along as they ran to him. The sight of his children burst through the tension like a ray of sun breaking after a heavy storm. Jake knelt to scoop them up, wrapping his arms around them with a fierce tenderness that made his heart swell. What are you doing here? He managed, trying to hide the quiver in his voice as he looked over their heads to Sarah. Her expression was a swirling mix of surprise and regret, a tangible shift in the air. They were with me, an unfamiliar voice cut in from behind the children. A woman, elegantly dressed but slightly disheveled from the rain, clearly a recent arrival, stood just outside the door, holding a huge pink umbrella. Her eyes darted around the room, catching the eyes of the guests before landing on Sarah. I thought you'd want to see them. I had to bring them after the call. Jake felt a cold wave wash over him. The woman's voice was calm, yet rigid. Maybe it's now or never. The collective gaze shifted, sensing the emotional gravity of the situation. Emily stepped closer to Jake, her brows knitted together in concern as the realization sank in. Who are you? Jake finally managed, still holding Sam and Mia tight. He could feel their tiny heartbeats thumping against his chest. I'm Beth, the woman said, her tone steady but edged with urgency. The twins' daycare teacher. When you didn't show for the pickup, I knew something must been off. Sarah, you didn't tell me you were back. A beat of silence lingered, and then Sarah's eyes widened. You called them to come. Here? At a wedding? Just a few minutes ago. Beth pulled her phone from her pocket, waving it as if it were proof. I tried to reach you, but it went straight to voicemail. The twins were worried about you, Sarah. They wanted to see you. Jake felt a surge of conflicting emotions, anger bubbling at the edges, joy in his children's embrace, and frustration with Sarah for not being there when they needed her most. Why were you all at the wedding? He asked, his voice firm but soft around the edges to keep from alarming the children. "We were invited," Sam chirped innocently, completely oblivious to the weight of adult tensions. Uncle Mike and Aunt Julia said it was a big party. Jake forced a smile for their sake, but his mind raced. In the midst of this family drama, the laughter of a wedding rang hollow. The once celebratory mood had darkened, every glance from the guests sharp and filled with unspoken judgments. "Can we go home now, Daddy?" Mia asked, her little hands curling around his neck. He looked at Sarah, whose eyes held a mixture of love, longing, and regret. Was this truly the moment she had hoped for? To rekindle what felt irreparable? Could they really find their way back to each other when it seemed their past loomed larger than ever? "This isn't the time," Emily whispered, standing protectively by his side. But it felt like the very beginning of a conversation they had all avoided for too long. "Sarah," Jake said slowly, his heart pounding like thunder in the silenced room. "I need to know, how did this all happen? Can we really fix this?" Her hesitation hung in the air like an unanswered question as she opened her mouth to respond. Before she could utter a sound, the front door burst open again, startling everyone. "Surprise! We're here for the party." Yet another wave of unexpected guests poured into the dimly lit hall. The tension wrapped around Jake tighter, and he could feel the weight of everyone's eyes on them. It wasn't just the wedding anymore. It felt like a reckoning. "Are we ready for the truth?" Jake thought, as the noise crescendoed, hoping against hope that this chaos would lead them all to clarity. Would the pieces of their shattered lives finally begin to fit together, or were they simply introducing more confusion? The new guests, a group of bright-eyed partygoers, swept into the room, laughter spilling out in a cascade of excitement. Jake glanced toward them, feeling the warmth and chaos mix into a dizzying whirl. But all he could focus on was the pang in his chest as he locked eyes with Sarah. "Jake," she began softly, her voice strained against the commotion. He could hear the plea in her words, even as a new wave of guests filtered in. Oblivious to the weighty turmoil that had just unfolded, he tightened his grip on Sam and Mia, feeling their small bodies safely nestled in his embrace. What would happen if he let them go? Would the swirling crowd distract them from the confusion in the room? "Look, more friends," Mia squealed, pointing toward a couple she recognized from other family gatherings. But Jake couldn't join in on her delight. His focus was solely on Sarah. "What did you mean it was now or never?" he pressed, his words a low growl hidden beneath the ambient noise. "I thought I couldn't wait any longer." Jake, her voice dropped to a near whisper, but the urgency behind it laced every syllable. "I needed to see you to explain. But the moment I walked in, everything was just wrong." Jake tried to decipher her expression. Was it guilt, desire, or simply the fear of confronting the choices that had led them here? Behind them, laughter echoed, glasses clinked, and the joy of the wedding felt like a distant memory, overshadowed by the gravity of their situation. "Why didn't you tell me you were back in town?" Jake felt frustration welling. "You didn't even think to reach out?" "I've been handling everything on my own." "I thought I was protecting you." She shot back, the resolve in her eyes faltering but not extinguished. "I didn't want to burden you. I figured you were better off without me dragging you down." His mind reeled. Her choice felt like a betrayal, yet all at once, there was a flicker of understanding. "You didn't have to protect me from being a father," he said, voice thick with emotion. There was a sincerity in his tone, a need for connection. "My heart belongs to those kids, Sarah. You're their mother, no matter what goes wrong between us." She flinched as if his words had struck her deeper than intended. The room buzzed around them as laughter continued, but all Jake heard was their children's innocent voices intertwined in the chaos. He glanced down at Sam and Mia, who were now enthralled by their newly arrived friends. The contrast of their joy with the cloud hanging over him deepened the ache in his chest. Just then, Beth stepped forward, breaking into their charged moment. "Listen, maybe you two need a moment alone. The twins can come with me. I'll get them some snacks." She meant well, but her words felt like a release of the air from the balloon of tension around them. Wait, Jake said, holding on to that moment of clarity. Please, we need to talk. But I don't want them to feel like they can't have fun not here. The laughter and music played on, hitting another crescendo just as Beth nodded and led the twins away. In that silence where they stood, Jake could feel his heart racing. Would this conversation hold the power to heal, or was it the beginning of a new set of wounds? He studied Sarah, gathering the courage to dare a step into what lay ahead. Are you ready to tell me everything? He asked. She swallowed hard, eyes glistening but resolute. I am, but we're in the middle of a wedding, Jake. Is this really the right place for this? Just as he opened his mouth to respond, a loud crash echoed from the other side of the hall. It sent a ripple of surprise through the crowd, everyone turning their heads in collective concern. What now? Jake muttered, a sense of foreboding creeping in the uproar. He could only hope that whatever had broken might serve to shatter the barriers between them, not just more glass. The moment felt precarious, teetering on the edge between fortitude and disaster. What would they face next? As the clamor of voices filled the air, Jake instinctively turned toward the source of the crash. He caught brief glimpses of guests rushing to see what had happened. Panic flickered across Sarah's face, mirroring his own. What was that? She asked, her voice barely audible over the distant chatter. The fear of an unknown event gnawed at him. It wasn't just the crash. It felt like a metaphor for the emotional storm brewing between them. The thrumming excitement of the wedding still clung to the atmosphere, a stark contrast to their conversation. The laughter that once enveloped them now felt like an echo of a life he had only seen in flashes between the breakdowns and the fleeting moments of happiness. Let us see, he replied, slowly pulling away from her. But he hesitated for just a second, sensing the gravity of the moment. He wanted to make sure she was still with him. As they stepped into the throng of people, Jake noticed the cluster of guests crowding around a beautifully adorned black limo parked at the edge of the venue. A knot tightened in his stomach. Could it be? He started to ask, but the words got lost in the muffled buzz of excitement as figures emerged from the vehicle. The crowd gasped, eyes wide with surprise. In an instant, time seemingly paused as the crowd parted to reveal a striking woman stepping out of the limo, her confident stride capturing everyone's attention. The fabric of her elegant dress shimmered under the venue lights, and long curls framed her familiar face. Oh no, Jake muttered, feeling the heat of embarrassment wash over him. Is that? Sarah's voice trailed off as she too recognized the newcomer. Just as they exchanged a look of disbelief, the woman turned, and a small child emerged from the other side of the limo, a triplet. No less, their faces a mirror of the woman beside them. A collective murmur swept through the crowd, an energy of shock rippling like a stone dropped into still water. A memory resurfaced in Jake's mind, his ex-wife, Rachel, the last person he had expected at a family gathering like this. Their messy divorce had been years ago, but seeing her again felt raw and unhealed. Jake, who is that? Sarah whispered, struggling to keep her composure as various emotions tangled in her expression. Rachel, my ex-wife. The admission felt heavy, the words sticking in his throat like a chalky tablet. I didn't know you had kids together, Sarah remarked, her brow furrowing even deeper. The moment stretched as Jake watched Rachel approach them, the triplets tugging at her dress and pointing curiously at the festivities. They looked so much like him, an unexpected reminder of what he had long tried to compartmentalize. Jake's heart raced anew. What was Rachel doing here? What did she want? She's not here to discuss old wounds, he cautioned himself in a desperate attempt at clarity. But the truth was, every second spent watching her approach sent his mind spiraling. Beth reappeared, her expression a mix of excitement and confusion. Jake, is that? Do you want me to grab someone to explain all this? No. Just let it play out, Jake said, feeling the familiar churning of anxiety in his stomach. He wanted to shield Sarah from whatever chaos Rachel was about to bring but felt paralyzed, uncertain of the best way to navigate this sudden intrusion. As Rachel drew closer, her eyes locking on Jake, he braced himself. She would likely pull the rug out from under everything he'd just begun to piece together with Sarah. The juxtaposition of that tantalizing possibility, the twinkling lights of the wedding, and the innocent laughter of his children felt like a pressure cooker on the verge of blowing. And then, just when he thought this unfolding drama couldn't get any wilder, she smiled warmly, beckoning the triplets to follow her as she reached them. "Jake!" Rachel called gleefully, unaware of the tension building between the three of them. "Guess what? I have something important to share." His world tilted on its axis, uncertain and dangerous. What could those words possibly herald? In that moment, everything hung in the balance, reminding him of how fragile connections could be with love just one unexpected turn away from before. What did Rachel's arrival signify for them all? Rachel's bright, enthusiastic call cut through the murmur of the wedding like a knife. Everyone turned in anticipation, but Jake felt frozen, caught between past wounds and present realities. The joyful smile on Rachel's face only made his insides churn more violently. Each step she took toward him felt like a step back in time, erasing all the distance he tried to create since their split. "Jake," she repeated, the warmth in her voice somewhat at odds with the cold flash of uncertainty that gripped him. Sarah stood at his side, lips pressed into a tight line, visibly struggling to mask her discomfort. "Hey, Rachel," he managed to reply, forcing a smile that fell flat in the midst of his anxiety. "What's going on?" Sarah asked, her tone flat but searching, eyes darting between Jake and Rachel. The triplets wafted around Rachel like little butterflies, giggling and trying to pull her further into the crowd of wedding guests. The sight of them, a reflection of his past, made Jake's heart ache. He'd believed he had moved on, but here was proof that he'd only buried feelings deep under layers of time and regret. Rachel then redirected her attention to Sarah. "You must be Jake's new girlfriend," she said brightly, extending her hand with an unapologetic smile. "I'm Rachel." His ex Jake winced. The casual introduction felt like a blow to his chest, leaving him breathless. He shot Sarah a glance, desperate for some assurance. "Yes, I am," Sarah replied, her voice steady but her eyes registering an array of emotions: confusion, hurt, uncertainty. "Nice to meet you. I'm so glad Jake has someone special in his life, especially considering all the challenges we had." Rachel's words dripped with sincerity, yet they stung like salt in an open wound. "What do you want, Rachel?" Jake asked, finally breaking his silence. A lump formed in his throat. He had always once anticipated their rare encounters, secretly hoping they would lead to reconciliation. Now, however, he just wanted to protect his present. Rachel paused, her expression shifting slightly. "I wanted to talk to you about the kids," she said. The excitement from moments earlier tempered into something more serious, a slight edge creeping into her tone. The world around them blurred as Jake locked his gaze onto her. "Right now? Yes, I know it's a lot, but it's important." Rachel's insistence struck a chord of panic within him. His mind raced back to their past arguments, the arguments embedded with miscommunication and misunderstandings. "Everything is fine, right?" he said, fighting to keep his voice steady. Sarah, sensing the emotional charge electrifying the air, reached for Jake's hand. Maybe we should step aside. Her tone was soothing, but her expression held misgivings. "Let her speak." "No," he replied swiftly. "I can't just let this happen here, especially not at a wedding." But Rachel pressed on, brightening her voice as if buoyed by his reactivity. "I promise it's good news. I wouldn't have come if it wasn't important. The kids have some exciting opportunities ahead of them." The words blended into a blur, drowning amid the crowd's cheer. Jake's heart raced faster. Opportunity? What could she possibly mean? Was that even possible with their history? As the three of them stood there, tension tightening the air like a bowstring, Jake felt torn. He wanted to hear what Rachel had to say, but panic wrapped around him like a suffocating blanket. He glanced toward the ballroom where laughter and joy continued to unfold, a stark contrast to the storm brewing in their small circle. "All right, let us hear it," he uttered finally, sensing that there was no turning back now. But could he accept whatever twist Rachel was about to throw into their lives? As they moved aside from the wedding throng, a silence fell over the crowd. All eyes were on them, and Jake could feel the weight of unspoken judgments pressing in. What had Rachel come here to share? With hearts pounding and uncertainty looming, they all stood at the brink of something that could change everything. Jake knew whatever it was, the stakes had just been raised higher than he ever anticipated. What groundbreaking revelation would Rachel unveil next? Rachel took a deep breath, her cheerful facade cracking just enough for Jake to see the hint of worry beneath it. The kids they've been presented with a chance to audition for this big performing arts school in the city, she said, her voice gaining strength as she spoke. It's incredible, Jake. They're so talented, and they could really shine there. Jake's mind flooded with images of the triplets, each one unique and vibrant, their laughter ringing in his ears. He had always wanted the best for them, but fear clawed at him. Auditions? Are you sure they're ready for something so big? What if it doesn't go well? Jake, Rachel pressed, urgency creeping into her tone. This could open so many doors for them. It's an amazing opportunity. Her eyes darted between him and Sarah, gauging their reactions. Despite the warmth in her voice, Jake couldn't shake the feeling of confrontation lurking just beneath the surface. Sarah squeezed Jake's hand tighter. But what are you really asking? She interjected softly, glancing at Rachel. Are you asking for Jake's full support? Both financially and emotionally? Rachel hesitated, her smile faltering for a moment. I know it's a lot, but I need you to be there for the kids. This might change everything for them. I wouldn't have come if I didn't believe it could be worth it. Joy mingled with anxiety within Jake. He never questioned the triplets' talent. It shone through in the way they moved and danced, their impromptu performances at family gatherings. But could they manage the pressure and attention that would come with such an opportunity? And could he support Rachel, their mother, without sacrificing his own peace of mind? Jake, you know them better than anyone, Rachel coaxed, her earnestness tugging at him. You've seen how they light up when performing. This could be their chance to be truly happy. The wedding noise faded away as Jake's thoughts consumed him. It felt as if every person in the ballroom was quietly watching, waiting for him to respond. Rachel, a sudden wave of laughter erupted from the main area, drawing him briefly away from their conversation. They were celebrating, dancing, and laughing without a care in the world. The vibrant colors of the reception blurred with feelings of resentment and nostalgia battling within him. Don't you see? Rachel continued, her voice more subdued now, sincere. This is about the kids. It's their future. He drew in a shaky breath and finally met Rachel's intense gaze. I want what's best for them, but navigating this it's complicated. I'm not sure I can just dive back in with you. It was hard enough to move on from us. Rachel's eyes flickered with something. Was it pain or understanding? I get it, Jake. I do. But they need us. Together. For them. The words hung in the air, heavy with implication. Just when he thought he was ready to break free of his past, it all came crashing back like a tidal wave. The thought of working alongside Rachel, of possibly rekindling a partnership, even for their children's sake, felt terrifying as the seconds ticked by. The room pulsed with music and laughter, a stark reminder of what they were both missing out on. You've had time to think about this. I haven't, Jake finally managed, his voice laced with sorrow. The weight of their shared history pressed down on him, tugging at the corners of his heart. Let me think about it, please. Rachel nodded, a mix of hope and disappointment playing across her features. I'll text you the details. But, Jake, this could be huge for them. As she stepped back, the moment hung delicately in the air, suspended between acknowledgement and unresolved tension. Jake turned to Sarah, whose brows were knitted together with concern. He could sense the unspoken questions between them and the urgency to weigh not just his kids' futures but what it meant for his own life. Can we go back? He asked Sarah quietly, almost pleading. She nodded, but her expression held something deeper. Was it hope or dread? As they walked back toward the wedding party, Jake felt the remnants of old wounds begin to crack open amid the glee of the celebration. The colors of the reception swirled around him, reflecting the chaos of his emotions, leaving him wondering what his next steps would be. Could he really face this new reality? What sacrifices would it demand? In the same instant, Jake felt the bittersweet tension of longing mix with fear. He knew the answers he sought were out there, waiting just beyond what felt comfortable. But would he have the courage to reach for them? The moment approached when he would have to decide what was truly worth fighting for. Jake and Sarah stood together, their hearts heavy in the vibrant atmosphere of laughter and joy around them. They both knew the reality of what lay ahead. The noise of the wedding felt foreign, almost an intrusion into their world of chaos. The moment Rachel had barged in, everything had shifted. It was time to confront not just the present, but the past they had tried to bury as they approached the gathering. Jake felt relief in having Sarah beside him. "We'll figure this out," he whispered, trying to reassure them both. They maneuvered through the crowd, the guests slowly returning to their conversations, excitement bubbling up again. He could see Emily watching from a distance, her internal storm written clearly on her face. There was anger, confusion, but also a sense of hope. Perhaps she too sensed this unexpected twist had the potential for transformation. "Jake," Emily called out, urgency lacing her voice as she jetted toward him. "I heard what Rachel wants. This is serious." Her gaze shifted between him and Sarah, and a lump formed in Jake's throat. He knew the implications of what Rachel was proposing. The possibility of their kids finding a new path, a new opportunity. It felt monumental yet daunting. "I know," he replied, fulfillment and fear clawing at his insides. "But how do I make this work with everything else?" Emily crossed her arms, her expression softening as she considered the children. "This isn't just about you or Rachel or even me. It's about the triplets. What's best for them needs to come first." A wave of guilt washed over Jake. In his pursuit to reshape his own happiness, he had almost overlooked the needs of his children. "But can we trust Rachel? Can I rely on her?" Jake's voice cracked as uncertainty gnawed at him. The history, the chaos, it loomed large like an encroaching cloud. "I'm here too, Jake," Sarah said softly, her eyes fierce yet tender. "We can help them together, co-parenting as best as we can." The declaration hung in the air, a promise and a challenge. It made Jake's heart race. Emily's nod of agreement was a beacon, illuminating the chaotic path before him. "What if this is our only chance?" Jake finally managed to articulate, his voice breaking slightly. "They need stability, a life without the kind of drama we've lived through." Both women shared a moment of understanding that this was not just a battle of who would parent better. It was a commitment, the kind that could redefine the meaning of family for all of them. The sounds of the wedding faded as he stepped closer, a newfound focus sharpening his senses. "If they want this," he said firmly, glancing at the bright-eyed triplets who were mingling excitedly with their new friends, "we can do this together. As a family." With a collective sigh, every fear, every hurt began to dissolve in the promise of something new. He felt his heart fill with warmth, drowning out the cold doubts that had lingered. "Rachel," he called out, spotting her again amidst the crowd. "Let us talk more about this opportunity together." The crowd quieted, and Rachel stepped forward with a tentative smile, surprise glimmering in her eyes. "Really?" she asked vibrantly, the tension easing like a warm breeze. Jake nodded, echoed by the support of Emily and Sarah standing firmly beside him. "Yes," he asserted, the decision feeling right. "But we need to chart this path as a collaborative effort. No more secrets, no more running away." He felt Sarah's hand squeeze his, a silent agreement to face everything and everyone together. "Can you bring the kids here?" Jake asked Rachel, his voice steady now, pushing aside any rising nerves. "I want them to be part of this conversation. They need to see that family can look different but still be strong." Rachel's smile widened and she nodded, excitement sparking in her eyes. It was exhilarating to witness this leap, a chance to weave roots where pain had once thrived. In that moment, laughter broke through the storm clouds above them, as if the universe celebrated this turning point. The wedding guests surrounded them, their chatter echoing the understanding that no heartbreak was insurmountable, that love, in its many forms, had an undeniable way of resurfacing. Just then, the triplets ran toward them, hand in hand, joy radiating from their small figures. "What's happening?" Mia asked breathlessly, curiosity lighting up her face. "The beginning of something amazing," Jake replied, now holding their tiny hands tight between his own. Together, we can do this. Smiles bloomed on the faces of Sarah, Emily, and Rachel. The unexpected had pushed them to forge a new kind of family, one that acknowledged the past while proudly stepping forward into the light with renewed purpose. With hearts full, they stood united, ready to embrace the unknown as they carried the joy of the children within their arms and an endless promise of hope into tomorrow. As Jake looked into the eyes of his triplets, he felt the fear evaporate. A wave of determination washed over him. This was the moment he would fight for. His heart swelled with love, and for the first time in a long while, he could envision a brighter future for them all. Don't wait one more second. You need to subscribe immediately to my channel to not miss the next exclusive stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm. Come on, it really helps. Comment below your feelings and reactions to this powerful ending. I want to hear all about it. And share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this incredible transformation. True fans understand the importance of supporting the channel through these actions. Show your love.